Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a manuscript all ready to go, a book still in your head, or maybe even 300 sheets of loose leaf shoved in a drawer, please visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. And yes, we do still get envelopes filled with 300 sheets of handwritten loose leaf. I have an amazing assistant who can read and type that stuff. It does happen. But I do have 3 authors today who have unleashed their inner author. And luckily, they also know how to type, which is a huge plus for me. Our authors tonight range all up and down the East Coast. Our first author tonight, Donna Keel-Armer, is the author of The Red Starfish. It's the first in the Kat Gabbiano mystery series, and you're going to love hearing about Kat and her adventures on this side of the pond, as well as in beautiful Italy. Our second author today, Michael Vecchione, is the author of Fallen Angel, The War for the Soul of Brooklyn. This is book 2 in the series. If you were lucky enough to read book 1, you've been waiting on the edge of your seat. If not, you have some catching up to do. And our third author today, Susanah Pratt, is the author of How Do You Do? My Name is Sue. Susanah has had quite the life, and I'm so thrilled that she put it in a book. And yes, that's Susanah on the cover with the rhino. So first, we're going to meet Donna and what Donna writes about the red starfish. Kidnapped, murdered, or another publicity stunt. A gorgeous film star and her priceless starfish necklace disappear. What do the indecipherable clues she leaves behind mean? Desperate to find her missing friend, Kat Gabbiano abandons her home and business in the South Carolina Low Country to fly across the ocean to Italy, where she and her best friend spent magical childhood summers. Will Kat solve the mystery of her friend's disappearance, or will she become the next victim? Woven against the alluring Adriatic coastline of Puglia, the red starfish mixes a dangerous cocktail of power, corruption, passion, and the forever friendship of 2 captivating women. Please welcome our author. Thanks so much, Donna, for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm so excited about being here and with the other authors too. That's great.
I'm thrilled to have you. Adore your book. You know that I absolutely adore it, especially since I do have to read your book with a glass of wine and a little plate of some caprese or something going on, because your book makes me hungry, that's for sure. I know it's a mystery, but your food descriptions are out of this world.
Thank you.
So tell our viewers a little bit about you and how you got your start in writing.
Well, I came to writing extremely late after I retired. However, the very first thing that I remember or recall about writing is my diary that I was given for the Christmas that I was 7 years old. And so I started journaling, and I have continued all my life. I do it now, which is how my first book was published, because when I decided to write a book, I had all the journals, photographs, the pictures, and I was just able to pull them all together. My love for Italy didn't start until 1995, which was my first trip there. So I've been traveling there for 28 years. And also, in another life, I was a restaurant owner, a caterer, and also a bed and breakfast. And before that, I was in corporate America. So I've always written, I've always had to do event plans, and I've always had to do manuals of those kinds of things. But it was after I retired that I decided, well, what have I wanted to do all my life? And I love photography and I love writing. So I combined the two and sent my first article off to a local magazine. Of course, it was on Italy. And they accepted it and said, then the editor contacted me and said, would you like to do freelance writing for us? And I said, I'd love to. So I did that for a few years, but writing for magazines or short stories are very restrictive. You've got that word count, you've got these deadlines, you've got all this stuff going on. And I thought, well, I really want to write a book. And the funny thing is, my husband and I were in Puglia, and I was standing on the terrace of this beautiful place we were staying. And I said to him, it was very late at night. We were having that last glass of wine, and there was a marina below us, and the cars would drive slowly down, just a few, and they'd cut off their headlights or they'd flash them. And I said to my husband, there's a murder mystery here, and I'm going to write that. So, but I didn't. I wrote my memoir like Susanah did hers. I wrote that first. But it wasn't until I moved to Beaufort that I found this fantastic writing group who just encouraged me and said, you need to write a book about all your experiences. So that's how the first book came to be. And then the murder mystery was just lurking in my mind all that time. So even before I got the first book published, I had started on that murder mystery.
I love
wanted that.
Maybe we're going to get Susanah to write a murder mystery next,
You never know, do you, Susanah?
I think that Michael, we may have to go backwards, although he combines the two, which you'll hear all about in just a moment. Donna, that's an awful lot of living. A bed and breakfast, a caterer, corporate America, all this traveling. And you're barely 40. I don't know how you managed to squeeze.
I wish. We'll never see the light of day of 40 again.
Did you ever find out if there was some sort of a thing going on with all those lights flashing down below your villa there?
I didn't, but I'm also doing a tour to Italy next year, a small group tour. And that's one of the places I'm going to take them, because I want them to not only see where Solo and Salento took place, but where the Red Starfish took place.
Oh.
And everything is still there. And it just made such a perfect setting for drug smuggling. I mean, what else can I say? It was perfect. And they used the fishing boats, which was perfect because they could offload the fish with the drugs hidden under the ice. So it just made sense to me that should all happen, and happen there.
I love that you're gonna have like an author, book lover tour of Italy going on here.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Donna, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask you, did you ever think that it might be a lover's lane down there with the cars parking and people turning their headlights off so that nobody would look into the car or see into the car?
That would be a possibility, but I think the flashing lights, unless they were discreetly meeting their
love. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And if they flashed 2.5 times or something, that wouldn't be that car.
I say it because I grew up in Brooklyn, and one of the places that was a spot like that was right under the Verrazano Bridge. Wow. There's a place where you can park and you can turn the lights off, and and you could drink wine and do whatever you want in the car at that point. So what better place than Puglia to do that, overlooking the Mediterranean or the Adriatic.
And it's very stark. I mean, the contrast, and that was what I loved also, is that karstic rock. It's very rugged. It's not a highly populated area either. So it's a good place. It's a good place for either lovers or smuggling.
There you go.
You can do both, I suppose.
The heel of the boot, right? Isn't that what Puglia is?
Yes. And the two towns that I merged to be Castello del Mare are actually Otranto and Castro di Marina. So those are the two that I've spent a lot of time in. And so I kind of merged them together to create this one village where these two women had spent all their childhood summers growing up. So of course they're Italian American. Kat's name is Caterina Maria Lucia Gabbiano.
Wonderful. What a great name. What a great name.
Yeah. So and I did my first book was translated into Italian, and I did a 10-week book tour there. So it was so exciting, and that's why I want to do a small group tour and take people back just for that full immersion kind of thing that is so near and dear to me, because I'm a slow traveler. I'm not a hop to this place and that place. I'm a put my roots down and hang out with local people. And it's just a wonderful experience. And I hope I convey that in the Red Starfishes.
Absolutely, absolutely. To Michael's wonderment about what was going on down there, I guess that's the difference between a romance writer and a mystery writer. Donna's looking down and she's thinking drugs. Maybe there was another balcony and there are people who are concocting a whole love story at the same time with the flashing lights going on. But you were born to be a mystery writer.
Well, Michael, your last name is Italian.
Oh yeah, yeah. My family comes from the Naples area. My grandmother was born in a place called Castellammare di Stabia, and in and around the Naples. My father was from a town called Nola. My grandfather, I should say. So I've been back many times, and I'm going back in May to Italy. Rented a villa in San Gimignano up in Tuscany, and we're going to to walk around and go around, and it's a wonderful country and a beautiful.
It is. It's so beautiful. I love the antiquity, and the food and the wine, but the people are
wonderful.
They taught me how to take the shell away from my heart, how to let the light in, because life is tough. And I have experienced a lot of pain and rejection and all sorts of things that have gone on in my life. And it was really those trips to Italy that taught me, again, to be vulnerable and to open up and embrace life fully, and to learn how simply to be. As Americans, we do all the time. We're busy, we got to make it happen.
Exactly.
And they just taught me how important it is. If you meet this person on the street, you stop and, they're your friend or neighbor, and you talk to them. And you might have an appointment with the dentist, but, the dentist understands. So he'll wait while you're having the conversation, and then he devotes himself to you when you come.
Exactly.
American dentists don't wait.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
Well, Donna, you sold me, and I will be buying your book as soon as we get off the air tonight. I love anything about Italy, and I will certainly enjoy it. And it's a murder mystery, so it's perfect.
Yes,
it's a murder mystery. It's perfect for you, Michael. And I'm telling you, make sure you pour a glass of wine while you read it, because you're going to want it's a murder mystery with amazing. Every time they say, let's just open a bottle of wine, and the next thing you know, there's cheese, there's olives, there's a oh my goodness.
Well, Stephanie, you know from reading Fallen Angel and Fallen Angel 2 that the character and his sidekick Sal Romano, who is a Monsignor, spend a lot of time in an Italian restaurant in Brooklyn.
Absolutely. I'm all about food reading. You could see my on the show. I'm all about food reading.
There you go.
But that's definitely what sold me on Donna. Was the first time I read her, and I said, God, I'm hungry. Just
wonderful.
It's amazing. So Donna, I have a question. You've written a memoir, and this is so we can encourage Susanah over there. And now you've written a murder mystery. Tell me about the difference in writing between the two of those. Was one harder, one easier? Did you approach it differently? Because we need Susanah to get into fiction next. So
yes,
give us some little tips on a memoirist who went rogue.
Susanah, I think writing a memoir was extremely difficult and very painful.
Yes.
And trying to figure out what I could and couldn't say. That was very difficult also. Some people are still alive, so you can't say this or that. So writing fiction just freed me up. It was so joyful, and I had so much fun just making up everything, and it just flowed beautifully. So for me, I love the transition and the switch. And writing the memoir was what opened the door that, hey, I can do this.
Yeah, it's same thing happened to me. So
Wow, I think I'm going to be following right along.
All
Yeah, you
right.
should do it.
Absolutely, you are. Well, for all of our viewers, you definitely want to grab your copy of The Red Starfish. Grab it now while you're there. Also, find Donna's memoir, because you'll definitely want to read that, and you're going to see a whole lot of tie-ins in there between that and her murder mystery, which is going to continue on. Now, Michael Vecchione had a little different way of combining his memoir and his book, because Michael actually lived a lot of his fiction book. About Fallen Angel, the war for the soul of Brooklyn, our author writes, there's a war for the very soul of Brooklyn, and the stakes are higher than ever. When perpetrators of particularly heinous and insidious crimes were acquitted after trial in an alarmingly large numbers across America, it caught the attention of a priest in the Vatican's Office of Exorcisms in New York, who noticed that all preceded satanic exorcisms. His shuddering conclusion: Satan must be directly responsible for the crimes and their aftermath. In the United States, the devil was winning and causing anarchy, chaos, and the destruction of life. The Fallen Angel series begins when Brooklyn becomes ground zero for the evil one, and prosecutor Michael Giacca, chief of the Brooklyn District Attorney's Rackets Division, is handpicked by a secret government agency to take on and defeat the devil. In book one, Giacca gets the best of his evil adversary time and time again. So Satan must up his game if he wants to succeed in his mission, the destruction of Brooklyn. For decades, family has been the cornerstone of the rich, vibrant life of Brooklyn, the borough of churches. Without it, life there would crumble. The evil one has recognized this and has taken aim at that essential institution. If you love crime, fantasy, and delving into the unknown, The Fallen Angel, a true crime fantasy book 2, tells the story of the war for the soul of Brooklyn. Will Satan succeed, or will Michael once again prevail? Please welcome author Michael Vecchione. Thank you for we all want to read that book for sure.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. And that was a great reading, by the way. I love your.
That's my favorite part of the show. I got to admit, it's like the dramatic reading. You know,
Yeah, that was terrific.
I always get to do that. But please, because I know the answer to this, but our two other authors and our viewers certainly do not. Your tie-in with these stories.
Well, when I retired from the practice of law, I've been practicing law for a very long time. I was the chief of the Rackets Division in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office.
Wow.
And I before Fallen Angel, I had written 4 true crime books, all about, well, 3 of the 4, all about cases of my own, and one, Crooked Brooklyn, was a memoir, not of my entire career, but of a 8-year period where I did a corruption investigation that led to a second one, to a third one, and to a fourth one. And at the end of the day, 3 Supreme Court judges were convicted of felonies. 2 of them went to jail. The head of the Democratic Party and the 3rd ranking member of the Assembly in Brooklyn went to jail. And it became a thing that my buddy Jerry Schmetterer, who was the chief spokesperson for the DA's office, and I said, you know, when we leave this place, and we felt that the DA was not going to be there forever, and when we leave this place, we should write about this 8-year period. And so Crooked Brooklyn became the product of that time after we left the office. I then wrote another book, and we wrote yet another book, and then, unfortunately, and Stephanie knows this, my buddy Jerry died, passed away from a really horrific brain cancer. And I sat at this desk where I'm sitting right now one afternoon, and I said, what am I going to do now? You know, what am I going to write about? And And I decided that I looked to my left, and if I could turn this around, you'd see all of the boxes next to underneath the staircase in my apartment. They contain virtually all the summations that I have ever delivered, handwritten in my career, and that's a lot of summations. Other files, other things that I took with me from the DA's office, and they contain lots of stories. And all of the cases that I did were, in my opinion, ripe for reading, and I wanted to share all of this stuff because I was proud of what I had done. And I was told, however, that with true crime, you need to have a beginning, middle, and end. And they said, you know, short story is not going to work. Find a way to tie them together. And again, I sat here and I said, you know, I do have something I can tie them together. And I had this idea a long time ago about the devil coming to Brooklyn and wreaking havoc on what has become, quite frankly, I've read just recently, the most expensive place in New York City to live is now Brooklyn. And it's a wonderful place. I grew up playing stickball in the street of Brooklyn. I went to college in Brooklyn, high school in Brooklyn, undergraduate school, elementary school in Brooklyn, and spent 30 some odd years in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. So Brooklyn was really my home. And I had done a case once, and this is really the beginning of the idea, done a case once against an FBI agent who had committed 4 murders. And it was a case that I took a lot of heat for bringing. And it was, I really have to say that it was a very difficult time in my life. I mean, I had to worry about his friends doing investigations about my family. I had gotten a call from someone in Florida telling me that, why are these retired FBI agents asking me about you? And I knew what it was. So after the case was over, Jerry and I said, you know, let's think about something we can do with this story. And we never wrote the story of the FBI agent because we couldn't. I had to, unfortunately, dismiss the case because of a problem with a witness. And we thought about what would happen if you had won the case. What would, you know, and the FBI agent was as popular as the guy who you had, who you were trying. And I took a lot of heat and didn't win the case. Imagine if I had won. And the prosecutor in my idea became a fallen angel. He was riding high. He convicted this FBI agent, and now nobody in law enforcement wanted to have anything to do with him. And it was perfect because the cases that I had dealt with really did have evil attached to them. One in particular, which is the last story in book 1, about the death of a young woman on the Williamsburg Bridge. And it was a case that I will never forget because of the horror that was attached to it. And in my summation, I called the defendant the devil. I said, the devil really came to Brooklyn. So the whole thing came together, and I had spoken to a couple of agents. They said, nah, that's not going to work. And then my angel came through, and that was Stephanie. I asked her if she would meet with me, and I brought her I said, I have this idea, and she loved it. And she said, send me a proposal. I said, well, you know, I happen to have the proposal right here, and I handed it to her. And a couple of days later, she called me and said, not only do I love it, but my editors love it. And I don't want you to write 1 book. I want you to do 3 books because it's a series kind of thing, and you can't end it after 1 book. So that's the history. And every
told me there might be more than 3 books because he just can't stop.
No, I can't. I'm glad you said that. You remember our conversation. I am in the middle. Right? No, I shouldn't say in the middle. I'm 9 chapters into writing book 3, Stephanie. So you know that now. But I have enough from what I've done in my career to do a book 4, 5, and probably a 6. That's how long and how many cases I've done. And it's been a labor of love, quite frankly. I've told this to Stephanie many times. I really thank her for having the courage to allow me to do my first novel. I mean, Fallen Angel was my novel, but and to accept my category of a true crime fantasy, which doesn't exist in literature. So, and she is, you know, that kind of person who is
Definitely
not
not
afraid to take a chance.
for
So,
doing it. Well, we're hoping to see it on a bigger screen too at some point.
yeah, I did
Wow.
option Fallen Angel 1, and I read just today, I read the latest iteration of the pilot, the script of the pilot for the first episode, and it's really wonderful, and I'm hoping now that the actor strike will be settled.
I know.
Writer strike was settled. The actor strike is settled, and the guys out in Hollywood who represent me will take it out into the marketplace. They're confident that they'll be able to sell it. So I can't wait for it to be on the screen. And I got to tell you, Stephanie, the pilot does, while it's made for television, obviously written for television, they do use a lot of the things that I had put into book 1. And I also noticed that in the latest pilot, because I had sent them the manuscript for book 2, because I thought maybe they could use some of it for, he did use a little bit of some of the touches from book 2 in the pilot as well. So I'm really very excited and very happy. And today all I did was sit at this computer and write this book. And it really warms my heart to do it. And again, I really thank you, and I can't thank you enough for having faith in me.
But yours is a very interesting mix of, you know, sometimes it fits neatly. This is a memoir, this is a novel, and you've got a lot of blurry lines in there because you actually lived all of this stuff. Yeah,
I do, and I do because you know, it's my story, except I can't tell it. I think it's much more interesting to tell it with the evil one being the guy who I'm battling all the time, as opposed to some of the, you know, the people that I actually did battle.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
You're writing autobiographical fiction.
Right.
I am.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
That's what Pat Conroy did.
Yeah.
I always have to put a plug in for Southern writers.
Well, that's wonderful. And I've read some of his stuff, you know. And I have to tell you that I agree with you, Donna, that when I went from true crime to this novel / you know, true fantasy crime, it does free you. And I remember when I did Crooked Brooklyn, the amount of editing and the number of phone calls I got from the publisher's legal division to, did this really happen? Did this judge say exactly that? Did he say this or did she say that? It was unbelievable how much I had to go through to make sure that they were happy and that they were lawsuit free, you know, or so I love doing it this way, because Stephanie hit it right on the head. This is a mixture, and I tell my story, but I can do it in a way that I can give myself cover, because it's a novel. So, you know, I can say some things that I wouldn't be able to say if it was a true crime book. So
now, Michael, I think we should steal a page from Donna's playbook here and plan a Brooklyn author tour.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
The hot spots, maybe stopping for a pizza here or a glass of wine there.
Yeah,
ending
absolutely.
up at the restaurant where they would eat with the Monsignor. I think we should definitely do a Brooklyn tour.
Well, you know, I call that place Emilio's, but that's not the real name of the place, obviously. And that place does exist. It exists on Court Street in Brooklyn, not far from where I live. And if I have at the time, I just want to tell just a very quick story. When that place opened, and it was opening, I should say, I had done an interview with a really notorious wise guy down in a hospital in North Carolina, and he gave me information about a body that he had buried in this location in Brooklyn. So I and 2 detectives went to the spot, and we went onto the street, and it was the back room of this soon to be opened Italian restaurant. And I said, well, what are we going to do? We can't tear up this entire back room. These guys are just building this place and putting it together, but they don't know this. But in the back room of that restaurant, wherever their storage is, there is a body buried, and it's buried under the concrete of the store, of the floor of that store. So it's, you know, when I have another thing that we wrote called "It's Brooklyn," and I'm going to use it at some point. And but that's it. It's Brooklyn, you know, and that's what I lived for I guess 40 years of my career in that genre, and that, you know, that venue, and in that atmosphere. So and I wouldn't give 1 year back at all. And I loved every single minute of it, doing that work, not necessarily the people I worked with, but doing the work.
Bad people, really bad people.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, for our viewers, you definitely want to grab your copy. Fallen Angel, a true crime fantasy. Yes, the category that Michael invented for his book. Please look back and get Fallen Angel 1 first, just so you can catch up on the story, and then catch us for Fallen Angel 2. And now our third author, who I hope is completely inspired to go rogue and go fiction after tonight, Susanah Pratt is the author of How Do You Do? My Name is Sue. And our author writes, it was 2020, and I was looking for something to ease the self-enforced quarantine of the COVID-19 lockdown. An attractive brochure from Hutton House Lectures arrived in the mail. I signed up for a Zoom course called Write a Chapter of Your Life, given by Lisa Pulitzer. Writing for that course stirred so many memories of the 90 years of my life that I decided to extend the chapter into a book. Those memories saw me grow and develop from a depression baby born in 1933 into a naive bride just out of high school. Suddenly, I was a housewife and a mother of 4 children, born over 5 short years, and then widowed at age 39. I began as a girl with virtually no knowledge of how the world worked, and eventually became an independent woman with a curiosity about life. I've traveled to many wonderful places on 5 continents, and then at age 84, I entered into a new way of life with a second marriage. Our combined family of 60 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are very important to both of us. In this memoir, I have set forth some of the memories of my life's journeys in hopes that a reader might get a glimpse of me as a growing, evolving woman and appreciate some of the experiences and observations I have been able to recall. I'm so excited to introduce you to first-time author, Susanah Pratt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for asking, Stephanie.
Oh, thrilled to have you. I'm sorry if I had to say rather loudly your age there. I know we should never say that, but your description, and everyone who meets you is absolutely blown away.
Yes.
I'm stunned.
Absolutely blown away. We had an author barbecue recently at our house, and Susanah and her lovely husband were in attendance, and I couldn't help but after they left to say to the people left there, how old do you think that they are? And nobody came within even 20 years of being
Wow, that's
I gotta
tremendous.
tell you, not even close.
Wow.
So
It's,
yes,
yeah, quite something.
it was quite, I mean, for you journaled this whole time, thank goodness, because trying to remember details, and there are details in this book. I've read this book. There are details that you remembered.
Yes, there are. And, you know, I never ever thought I would do anything like this, and the experience of learning. And as you said, each time you write something, you know, it sparks another memory. And it surprised even me when I would tell my husband, George, this story, that one, this, that. After 6 years, he kept saying, no, I didn't hear that story. So it's been a wonderful experience. My original thought was perhaps my family would like to know who this woman was. And so that was kind of what propelled me. But again, with the help of Stephanie and Lisa Pulitzer, they inspired me to go on. And it's funny, writing a memoir must kick off the idea of wanting to write fiction. Because I got thinking about it, and what you said, it frees you up to give all these kinds of experiences. They're semi-true, maybe semi-biographical, but so I'm fooling around with that. I'm sort of like, this is kind of fun. I've had trouble getting from third person to first person. And my husband has been a wonderful proofreader and organizer and help. I don't think this ever would have happened without him. That's why I dedicated the book to him, because his life has always been one of education. And you might be interested to know this. He was a retired federal judge in the 2nd District. And so he
might know each other.
Well, I've heard of Judge Pratt, that's for sure. So is that who your husband is?
Married to,
okay.
Yes.
There you go.
He's sitting here with me, but he's written enough books that he could help me when I was having some difficulties. But it's really been a true experience, and somehow now that it's been published and people have seen it and talked about it, they felt it's kind of a journey where you say, oh my goodness, she did that, I could have done that, or I didn't know you could do this. And so it's not just about me, it's about life's journeys and what you run into, whether it's religion or whether it's education. Our combined large families have given me lots and lots of resources. So it was a great experience. The picture on the book cover of me feeding the rhinoceros, I had taken a 6-person safari to Africa, and they took us out into this field, and there's 2 types of rhinoceros, white and black, I think. And it depends on how they eat. One's a ground feeder, and one takes its food off bushes and shrubs. And I was absolutely in no danger at all. This felt I could dance circles around him and he wouldn't even know I was there. But when I came home with the picture, my son-in-law said, could I have a copy of that picture? I said, sure, but why? He says, I want to put it on my desk and label it mother-in-law. So it was a bona fide true, and that's one of the stories I talk about going to Africa. I still haven't quite believed it, and I'm so glad to hear other authors and similar journeys that you've taken. You've kind of encouraged me to think some more about it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure with 90 years of memories, more difficult things that you faced, certainly with the memoir, we were talking about how if these people are still alive, you have to watch what you say and things, but even just making decisions about what's in and what's out before you end up with a book that's 4,000 pages long. I'm sure there was a lot of decision making as to what's in and what's out. And I think that I'll do a little shout out to your mentor, Lisa Pulitzer, who I think was on our show about 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Lisa is a fabulous author in her own right of about 50 books or something.
Wow.
And writer and ghostwriter and editor and coach, etc. And for her to work with you to differentiate between what goes in. And I think a lot of that had to do with you having a focus, your focus on wanting people to see this evolution of growth, which I think was a really great focus. You didn't get boggled down with what we had for dinner on Thursday night or other things. You actually did present what your description says, which is you evolving and growing from a depression baby to an independent woman who raised her children and put dinner on the table and worked full time and did all these amazing things that you would have never thought yourself capable of as a young bride. And then becoming a newlywed later in life is just such a wonderful romantic end of the story there. So I really commend you and your mentor on keeping a thread, because I think a lot of people who want to write memoirs like yourself don't get it done because they get too boggled down in, oh, but I didn't mention that Tuesday I broke my toe. You know what? It really did. You had to really keep the thread, and good for you for keeping it. You really,
and with help from you and from Lisa and from George.
George, absolutely. No, everybody kept their eye on the prize, which was seeing your evolution throughout it. And that was just amazing. What did you think was the hardest thing about writing this book?
I think probably originally when I took the first class at post college, I thought it was a one term, and so I had to write a term paper, and so I kind of did that, and then, as I said, with help from Lisa, she said, I just think you ought, there's more you need to say, there's more you need to do. And so I have continued to take classes with her, and she's, as you know, a published author and knows the pitfalls, and just was the mentor from the very beginning. So I probably will still continue with her and work on maybe on the fiction book.
Oh, well, she's good at fiction too, trust me.
Yes, she is. She is. But it's been I also found, because it started with COVID, where we were pretty much housebound, and to see this, and it opens up your mind. This is what, I was focused for so many years of what I had to do. I worked over 30 years in the Syosset Public Library. And so some of the research came from that, and probably my fiction book will be about a librarian.
Oh,
And there's lots of stories in there. Not as good maybe as police stories or
oh, those librarians have a totally secret life going on, I'm sure.
yes.
And there's nothing better, Susanah, than a book about libraries and books.
Yes.
And people that are interested in books.
Absolutely. What's good about that is librarians generally love to read, so you have a built-in audience of readers.
Exactly.
Absolutely. She could be a crime solver, Susanah. She could be someone who witnesses something and then begins doing research on her books, with her books in the library, and finally solves this crime,
Absolutely.
So
that's the nice part about fiction. It gives you that leeway to do that. And I was enjoying your Southern accent, because as Stephanie said, my life has been rather unusual, and I moved quite a bit from the time I was born in Washington, D.C., and through the South, and finally settled in New York when I was in 8th grade. But the Southern accent, it doesn't take me long to be around Southerners, but I find it creeping back in. I love the South, and that was a really good experience for me too.
It is a wonderfully slow way of dealing with life. So
it is. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful here. I hope if I come to New York, y'all all have to come down here.
Okay.
I live in a little town called Beaufort, South Carolina. It's right on the water, and it's huge, magnificent oak trees with Spanish moss draped all over the place, and the pluff mud, and everything blooms year round, and it's just a gracious way to live still.
Where were you born?
Actually, I was born in Richmond, Virginia,
Oh, were you? Okay.
and I've lived all over like you,
Uh-huh.
Mississippi, Texas, Georgia,
Okay.
so Tennessee. So, you know,
Somewhat homebound. I have not left New York, and
Oh, my goodness.
the furthest I've gone is across the divide into Queens, and now I'm in Queens. So I mean, I've done a lot of traveling, and I've been to South Carolina and have some, and my wife has some friends down there. But I know Beaufort. I can't think of why I know that name or that city.
South of
Is What's that?
it's squarely in between Charleston to the north and Savannah to the south.
Yeah, yeah. I've
So,
been to both places, and
well, it's
maybe
the
just
home.
passing
Yeah, it's the
the
home
home.
of Pat Conroy.
Okay,
I'm a
Ah,
maybe that's
docent.
where.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a
maybe that's
docent
it.
at the Pat Conroy Literary Center, and it's just amazing. It's just
Yeah,
wonderful to have that here, and his wife, his family, his sister. So it's a
yeah.
great place to live.
That's great. Sounds wonderful.
Well,
Sounds wonderful.
Michael, I'm with you. I've traveled to 50 states and 30 countries, and I still live 5 miles from the hospital where I was born in Queens.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. Well, the hospital I was born in doesn't exist any longer, Stephanie. It's
I
gone. It's changed, and it was, I think, knocked down. It's probably, knowing Brooklyn, is probably condominiums now or something, because every New York is the city has really changed so much that particularly around this neighborhood. I live in Long Island City, Astoria area, and every hole in the ground becomes a six family or a sixth floor or eighth floor, apartment building. It's just unreal. And
Michael, I think it's a library was built there, and there's a dead body
Ah,
in the library.
There you go. And the librarian did it.
Right.
yeah,
I think so. I think so. I think Susanna is going to get very hooked on this whole I could write whatever I want and it doesn't have to be true
yeah.
kind of
Absolutely.
thing. And that's
Susanna, wait till you sit down at your computer and start
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really such a it's freeing. It's really just a wonderful experience, to take something and to
Yeah.
now maybe mold it in a way that you wanted it to be, or that the way
Right.
you think it should be, and you can do that when you write fiction. So
Yeah.
it's
I'm inspired. Thank you.
yeah.
Plus, be prepared for your characters to talk to you. They get in your head and they tell you who they are, and they'll wake me up in the middle of the night and say, "I don't like that scene you put me in. You need to take me out of that." So,
I don't know, were you in my dream last night? I dreamt about what I'm writing now, and I do the same thing. The character says, I will wake up, grab my phone, and go to the notes on my iPhone
yes,
and start to
yes,
write a scene based on what I've just dreamt. And it's
yeah,
but I used to do that when I was trying cases and I was writing summations. I would write a summation after I had been in my garage at the time, working out on the machines that I had in there, and I'd be thinking about it, and I would always have to have a pad next to the whatever machine I was working on, because that's when the thought came to me about something I needed to put into the summation, and I would write it down. And it was so it's amazing you said that, Donna, because
Michael, you have some characters that I don't think you want visiting you in your dreams.
no, I got that, and but they do. And the other place, I'm a practicing Catholic, and I go to the mass every Sunday or Saturday evening, whatever my schedule allows me to do. And I have to tell you that I always ask God to give to and thank Him for inspiration, because He has been inspiring to me. And I have thought of more ideas for both book one and book two sitting at mass. And I know maybe I'm committing a blasphemy because I should be listening to the priest, but the idea is, and I can't take out my phone and write it. So as soon as I leave church, I get into my car and I get the phone out and I write in my notepad what I thought about. And that is God's honest truth. It's unbelievable, but it's worked.
I do. My characters come to me not only in my dreams and at night and wake me up, but when I walk. I'm a walker and I walk most mornings, and they come to me on that walk. It's
Yes.
just amazing. And I've got my phone, and then I'm going, oh, I'm going to get killed because I'm not watching where I'm going.
And you don't want to forget what you thought about, because it's brilliant when you first think about it. But when you try
Yes.
to write it, it doesn't necessarily come out the same way if you wait too long to put it down somewhere. So
Yes, you've got to capture those thoughts
right away. Exactly.
immediately while they're fresh and pure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you three have certainly inspired, I'm sure, dozens of books out there
Yes.
are
was
going
gonna-
to be written off this inspiration.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stephanie, I haven't been able to write the ending to the third book, which that's something I often do first. I'm sort of goal oriented that way. And Kat is not interested in it ending. So just to let you know.
Okay, because Michael told me that Satan's not interested in backing down in his series.
He's not. He's going for the prize. And I think he'll only be happy if the Brooklyn Bridge collapses one day, you know, and then he'll
how
move on
horrible.
to someplace else. Yeah, that is horrible, but he's a horrible guy. You know,
I mean,
so.
he's kind of a horrible guy. That's very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
true. He's kind of a
Wow.
horrible guy. Well, you have certainly inspired me. I've always wanted, I've never written fiction myself. I write and I ghostwrite nonfiction. You know, 5 titles that I've written and probably a dozen that I've ghostwritten, but always nonfiction. And I've always had in the back of my head, I do want to write fiction. Donna, after reading your book, I decided that I had to go to Italy for a month, and that's when I was going to suddenly get inspired.
All right.
On a balcony. I'm not
There you
sure
go.
when I'm going to have time for this month in Italy. But
You'll make it. You'll make it.
Yeah,
It's
you'll do it.
with computers and our phones and WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff.
so, Susanah, maybe you need to, set the scene. Maybe you need to, write. I know people who have written their books in a particular place. I mean, writers' retreats is all the rage, but maybe you need to go to that library and get yourself a nice little corner and sit there in the corner. And that's when it's all going to start to flow, because you're in the right place.
I think that's a big help. And I also think that having lived some of the experiences, and then you go into a library, and I mentioned in the book that I was privileged to go to what we call ALA, which is the American Library Association, that have conventions every couple of years. And it was in California, and it was at the time when we were just sending satellites into space to get information. The speaker at the convention said, who's going to collect this data? Who's going to store it? Who's going to have access to it? And it just keeps growing, so there's so much there.
Donna, you mentioned the Syosset Library. I'm doing I was asked to be at an author's showcase on Saturday.
I'm going to be there.
Oh, you will? Oh, well,
I
then
will.
I'll introduce myself, and I'm happy to see you.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
I just saw it in the local newspaper the other day. So I called the program person and I said, I worked there 30 years and I just published a book. I said, would be all right if I came and brought my book. And then she invited me to come. So I've never done one before. Have you done them before?
I've done only the one that Stephanie set up for us and set up for me last year. This is my first time. Yeah.
Right.
And but I have been speaking. I'm part of an organization now that sets up true crime talks to libraries all through Nassau and Suffolk County, and I've done a lot of those. But this is my first one with this group, this authors showcase. I'm looking forward to it. So
I think it'd be good. Well, we'll meet you there.
yes.
I'm delighted that you two are going to meet in person. Donna, I feel like we're getting left out here, but
I know. I'm really upset.
Come on, y'all come.
Well, before we go, let me remind our viewers, because we want you, our viewers, of course, reading these fabulous books. And hey, if you want to write some books and get on our show, you go right ahead. Susanah Pratt, the author of How Do You Do? My Name is Sue, a fabulous memoir of 90 years of adventure. And watch out, because there's more books in her. So you better start now, because there's more to come. Fallen Angel, The War for the Soul of Brooklyn by Michael Vecchione. This is book 2. You'll definitely want to grab book 1 and book 2. And then, of course, 3, 4, and whatever else happens, because I hear that Satan is not backing down. And then finally, The Red Starfish by Donna Keel-Armer. It's the mystery series book 1, which means that there's much more to go. And if you were listening to this, you heard that Kat is not ready to let go of this yet. So who knows what's to come, but our authors have been truly inspiring for all of our readers, writers out there. So thanks for joining us. By the way, if you happen to be in Syosset on Friday night, you can meet 2 of our authors there at the library.
Saturday afternoon.
Saturday at 1.
Saturday at 1.
Yeah,
Thank
1.
you. Saturday at 1. Make sure you go there, but also please follow our authors online and us so that you can get all of the news about them, because they are just fabulous. You're going to want to keep up. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Stephanie. It
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Stephanie.